Scott has been working the last hour or so helping me get all those wildflowers that turned into weeds. And luckily my rose bush is still okay, but it did kill a lilac bush. Yeah, it's just so demoralizing, but I could not have cleaned that out without him. Every time I come out, there are butterflies on these flowers. They just seem to never stop feeding on them. It's just so beautiful to come out here and see this. Scott says that the butterflies are endangered, so it's so happy that we planted these flowers. And even there's like little mini ones over here. Oh my gosh, 3 on one flower. I guess that's like a little moth. It's amazing. It's so beautiful. I mean, it happens every single time I come out. Theo, did you come out and see the butterflies? I have to watch him because if he gets under the deck, he comes back with fleas, and I don't want him to come back with fleas. No, you're not going anywhere. Yesterday, I was kind of in limbo a little bit, and what I did was I do this every now and then. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then these over here, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 paintings that had been started over years. Like, I think there were some paintings that I looked like they were 20 or more years old that I have just kept in a closet or on a, in a drawer thinking, sometimes I think, oh, there was something okay about it. There was just something okay about the painting, and possibly in the future, I think it's the same energy as like keeping an old sweater, keeping some kind of clothes that you go, I have good memories of it and maybe I'll wear it in the future. And then I realized year after year after year, I'm not going to work on this anymore. And finally, I just thought, well, what am I going to do yesterday? So I used Gamblin oil primer. So I have different kinds of oil primers, and some are more slick than others, but I like it, and so I just did a thin coat over all these. Remember, you can't do oil over acrylic, but you can do oil over oil. So I just, I just did a coat over all these. They're completely dry. And then today I thought, what could I possibly do? So I got these 2 boxes in the mail yesterday, and so I'm going to open them and show you what's inside of them. And these are older pieces that I got back from Insight Gallery in Fredericksburg, Texas. Sometimes when I talk, I feel like my mouth does not follow my brain. I got them back from Insight Gallery, and they've had these for a pretty long time. So I'm going to open them and see what I feel about them after all this time. So far, so good. I can't tell you how many times we have gotten paintings back from galleries and literally there was no padding. We've never had a piece be damaged, but high-end galleries. And what they do is, they just hire people. Probably, guys who are just day laborers or something, or they just picked up out of high school and they don't know how to ship. So, and they don't realize that they are actually liable if the painting comes damaged, but it looks like they packaged this pretty well so far. I want to applaud Insight. They even did this, and they wrapped it in a plastic bag, which is something over the years that Scott and I have started to learn to do. Sometimes we literally just use garbage bags, but yeah, no, this is pretty nice, pretty high end. Putting cardboard in between, using that plastic. This isn't a tape. It's like, it's a plastic roll that you just keep going round and round and round. And so it's easy to take off, but doesn't leave any residue. So yeah, lots of packing so far. One thing I am confused about is it's going to be very difficult for me to get my painting out. I assumed this was a bag that was bigger, but it is almost like hermetically sealed. So I wonder if they have a machine that they put the paintings in and then this plastic creates this bag, because I can't just slip this out now. It's like, it's so tight that I'm gonna have to cut it, which makes me a little sad because now I won't be able to use this over again. That is the one thing about shipping and paintings and frames, is that there is so much waste. So we try as much as possible to save every bit of bubble wrap, cardboard, even, you know, single sheets, just because we want to reuse it. But I can't just slip this painting out. It is literally so tight that I'm going to have to cut it. Oh, that's a shame. Luckily, the second piece is in a much bigger bag, so I don't have to completely slice it open to take it out. Both of these pieces are pretty sketchy, or what you might even think of as demo-y type paintings. I actually did do this as a demo for a class, and I didn't frame this. So this was put on by a gallery, and I just don't think it really helps. So I'll either try and sell it unframed, or definitely will have to put a different frame on it. You know, it's interesting because fads, galleries, artists, we all go through phases where when I first started to do art, we only used gold frames. And we really liked the distressed and like the multi-tones underneath it and the crackling and, you know, designs and, you know, corner ornaments. And then we got into dual tone, and then all of a sudden, I mean, maybe 20 years ago, like black frames started to come into vogue. And then certain galleries were like, we're only going to use black frames. And then it was, you know, hard finding black frames that had any sort of interest or design. I mean, so I told Scott recently, all I want to do is stained frames. So I want to buy good enough wood and simple wood, but then stain like different tones. So that's what I'm hoping for. It's difficult because this particular painting, you see how it can go much lighter and go much darker. This particular painting is relatively dark, right? I just don't think this particular frame helps it at all. Yeah. I rarely ever do like head and hands for a pose, like where I'm painting much smaller, you know, from life. But this is a great model. This is the model Jessica from Vermont that Scott has also painted a few times and done some incredible paintings of. This is one of the reasons why paintings also cost a lot, is the amount of packing material. So I want you to see, I just want to show you that, yeah, Insight gets an A+, right? They put extra cardboard, they did paper and bubble wrap, they even did this styrofoam for corners. A lot of times people will actually make either styrofoam or cardboard corners just to secure the edges, the corners of the frame. So yeah, and then this is that plastic stuff. If you guys don't know it, you can get it anywhere, and it's like in a roll, and you just keep rolling. But yeah, no, it's great job. They obviously are very professional in their packing. Packing paintings and unpacking paintings is like a little bit overwhelming. Just all this excess, right? Of course, I'm going to try and use it as much as possible. I did want to just show you that you can get these plastic bags from those shipper places, places like United. There's all kinds of, the name like sort of is it's not in my head right now. There's a lot of packing supply places where you can get boxes, all kinds of shipping things, and that plastic tape, cardboard, bubble wrap, and you can get these plastic, really heavy-duty bags. Now, you know, one time Scott and I, we were using those air float boxes, right? And I think we were just in a super rush and we didn't think about it. And I sent a painting to a gallery. And I would say 90-95% of the time we wrap our paintings in plastic. And we just didn't. It was one of those things where you're like, you can't explain why you didn't do it. And the gallery did get mad at us, did get mad because I guess even that little bit of foam that's in the air float boxes, he felt attached to the painting. Now, when I got to the show and I looked at it, I didn't see anything, but, you know, he's very high in gallery and he, you know, just didn't want any reason for a collector to say what's going on. So I spent time and I brushed it off and I made sure there was any little schmeffs or dust, but it's just something to think about. I'm sharing this information for all of you out there that maybe don't realize what goes into shipping, the cost, the overhead, and also that galleries will get mad at you if you don't ship correctly, if you don't put in plastic, you know, the actual painting. So for just it's a good idea to do it. And even if you just use garbage bags, but you see how big this painting is. Now this frame, this is a 24 by 30. So the actual frame is probably close to 30 inches or 28 inches wide. And so sometimes you have to really get those extremely large garbage bags to be able to fit a painting in, you know, solidly. This painting on the bottom is 30 by 24. And I was definitely going through a phase where a lot of my paintings were dark, meaning I used dark backgrounds with rim light or backlight or just going dark. And it's hard to frame because, you know, you don't want the whole piece just to look so dark that it disappears. And most people in their homes do not have great lighting. You know, you'd have a very bright painting hung in someone's home and it might be just side window light or maybe light from a very high ceiling, you know, lamp. It's something to think about. Ugh. Anyway, so I just wanted to, so this painting went to Insight. I had this in the 2020 Portrait Society. And it was the one where I can't remember if we had two Portrait Societies on Zoom or just one. And so I had entered it in the 2021 and I got in to be a finalist. Let me zoom in a little bit and see if I can get, and I'm going to be very honest with you. I can't remember the prize that I got. I can't remember if it was 3rd or 4th place. I just can't remember. And I did a saying, we are born of love, love is our mother. And very faint, I put Rumi, because it was a saying, you know, from that famous poet Rumi. And so after the Portrait Society, I sent it to Insight and it's just been there. So it's been there for like 4 years and I haven't done anything else with it. So I don't know what I'm going to do with these paintings, right? I know I'll probably take it out of the frame and we'll use the frame for other things. Maybe I'll have Scott make a frame and I'll stain it because I also think that this dark frame doesn't help this painting. It's very tricky. I feel like we have so many frames. I've always talked to you guys who've watched these videos. I have tons of frames behind that curtain, right? And Scott has tons of frames. We just have frames everywhere and it's incredibly difficult. I find it incredibly difficult to paint for a frame. So a lot of times in the past, I haven't done it in many years, but in the past when we would do a big order of frames, because frames might take 6 weeks. So you can't just, you know, every 6 weeks order a frame. So we would do a batch, you know, anywhere from maybe 8 to 10, 12 frames at a time, just so that they could also consolidate it and put, you know, save a little bit on shipping. And, you know, so then you wind up with all these frames. And for me, I just find it very, very difficult. And going through that phase where we were ordering a lot of dark frames, whereas like now I don't want to use the dark frames. We had all these leftover gold frames. And if the gold was just a little bit off, like it was a little bit too brass, it was a little bit too this, a little bit too that, it really would hurt the painting. I don't know, maybe my paintings are just not strong enough. I don't know, to like withstand a frame, just any old frame. Like I almost feel like sometimes they just look better without a frame, because when you put that value, that color around a painting, it does affect it. And, you know, a lot of people have very light walls. And so these black frames can be very stark. you have to have really good contrast, or you have to have very high key, like Impressionism. So a painting that has all light colors and light values, you can have sort of a dark frame because it makes it look like you're looking through a window. So I don't know. I'm sure Scott will be able to use these frames. I mean, these things would be great to put on like demos or sketches that, you know, Scott has done. His paintings are able to withstand frames better than mine. But I'm gonna open my very last one. I haven't seen this one in a very long time either. So this is a charcoal on board. And what is the size? It looks like, what is the size? I usually always put the size on the back. It looks like a 24 by 30. And this has such memories for me because this was the very first video I ever made for Patreon. It was April 2020, you know, when the world was falling apart and every single show and every single trip disappeared. So I decided to like, well, I'm just gonna start making videos with my phone. Yeah, I did it in my studio downtown. And so this is like a charcoal dust brush with a little bit of like gouache, splatter, and I show the whole process. It has a muted glass. I mean, it's not 100% non-reflective, but it's very matte, meaning my camera is picking up more reflection than, you know, you see in person. But yeah, that shows it more realistically. So yep, that is a charcoal that I've had it in sight, and I'll probably just sell this to somebody who comes to my studio. This is what happens to, you know, pieces you get back. You get to sell them for cheaper because you don't have the commission you have to give. But if anyone's interested, this is my very first video that I show first starting out with charcoal pencil, just getting all the measurements and the alignment, you know, and just trying to get all the placement, then using powder, and then white chalk, and then using a little bit of, I don't know if I used, I'm pretty sure I use gouache, just a little bit of white gouache with water to splatter at the very end, just to create almost like an outer space feel. All dark frames, all relatively darker paintings. I mean, the pumpkins are a little bit brighter, but that's what I'm wanting to get away from with my still lifes, is just brighter and happier colors, right? Brighter and happier. I think when I do portrait, it's just maybe a little bit more focused on drama. And hopefully when I get back to portrait, I'll be able to bring those color senses with me. The other piece that Insight had, and I had shipped to Medicine Man Gallery in Tucson because it was a relatively new painting, was the Maasai Mother and Baby. And I really thought that was a good painting, so I didn't want to get that home yet. And so if you're interested, this was a class where I was experimenting a lot with working on a black, already toned surface. This is Arches oil paper, and I had toned it with a thin ivory black wash. I rarely do head and hands for a demo, but I liked doing this full pose because this chair was really kind of fun and had a lot of character. I had adhered the Arches oil paper to a piece of foam core afterwards, just because I wanted it to be a little bit sturdy to go into a frame. When you paint fingers, be careful about going too dark between the fingers. You really have to think about how tiny those darks are compared to everything else. It's always very common for us to go in there and show too many details in those tiny little darks. The same goes for the little darks in the nose and the lips. I also try not to emphasize like the eyelashes. It's very typical that we always want to make the eyelashes much darker in a tiny little face. And I had to compare the eyelashes to the hair, so they had to go much lighter. I thought I would be productive and touch up those spots that we did from last fall that I never got finished. And I always just tell people when they come in, the sad thing is that most people don't look at your ceiling. Most people don't look at your ceiling unless the whole time Scott is always telling people, look at these beautiful lights. Look at how great they are. Look at how they look like skylights, which then makes people look at your ceiling and look at all the mistakes. And it's just one of those projects, like those dark spots and, you know, these areas that you're just kind of like, I mean, they're not like a high priority. So you just tend to like, don't do them. But I'm like, I'm gonna do them. So I added more white to the paint that we had. We tried to test this paint when we took a sample and brought it to the paint place, but the paint was just too dark. But so I added some white. I tested it on paper. We'll just see. That does look too light, but oh, dang. I don't want to have to paint this whole ceiling. I was hoping just to like touch up these areas. Oh goodness, I'm hoping it dries darker. Scott is drying it so we can make sure to see how it dries. It does look like it's drying pretty well. It's not noticeable. After rewatching this video, it's so much more obvious through the video that all the spots that are showing up, especially above the window. So I'm coming back again today to retouch those up. Now, when you're just in the room and you look up, it's not that much noticeable, but the video does show it more. And I was so thinking I was done with it, but I wasn't. Now I'm just showing you how much rain. It's just been raining so much. Better than a drought. Yeah, it's hard to do anything in the yard, but okay, back to work. Yeah, I don't think we'll ever get it perfect unless we were to be willing to paint the whole ceiling.
We'll just have them.
And to be honest, it's like we're just not willing to paint the whole ceiling. Well, right now.
Eventually we can have them do it.
Yeah, but still, it would need to be a bunch of patching, but trying not to be that, I guess, judgmental about. Oh, I know, that's what's so hard with a roller. I'm gonna get you a wet paper towel.
Yeah.
Oh, don't fall off. Oh, good, we got it in time. You know, it's very difficult when you're bending to try and get the corners. Yep, no, it's looking better.
You want me to get a little
Trying to, no, I don't think it says noticeable to the left.
Okay.
It shows up a lot more on the video camera, but also it's so wet that it looks a lot lighter.
We'll see once it
But I
dries.
think as you've kind of feathered it out, it's gonna look a lot better. So thank you.
You're welcome.
It looks much better. It's not perfect, but it looks much better.
So Theo and Fig are pretty interested in what's going outside here. And there it is. He was hiding in some boxes, so I went out there. And now he's come out. And he's eating all of the stuff that I was going to pull up out of the area there. Oh my gosh. I guess he's a hedgehog. Or a groundhog, a small one.